Shalom, family. So I thought let's start the weekend by just touching on a few interesting articles again. Touch on news. There's so much happening. It's ridiculous, as always, which is normal when living at the end of the time of man, just before the big judgment arrives, a time such as never has been, nor will ever be again. And if God did not shorten it, no flesh would be saved. So, the first thing I wanted to touch on is local news that you won't have access to overseas. South Africa. The US pulled out of a planned joint military exercise with South Africa. Now, come on. Any of us on this channel will know we are not surprised at all. We might be surprised that there was even a planned exercise with the US at this stage. The Shared Accord military exercise between the US and South Africa has been cancelled 10 days before it was due to start because the South African Ministry of National Defense would not allow the US military to let armed soldiers off their aircraft to protect it. So the standing rule here is when they come to another country, they're allowed to have armed guards to protect their assets. It's kind of normal wherever you go in the world. It is acceptable. It's not like the armed guards are going to run out and rob a bank. The joint military drill would have been held between 11 and 22 August in the Free State, one of our provinces. Well, you'd call it a state, but it's not quite a state. And it has been held 4 times before, but the last time they held it was in 2022. So this was a biggie. It's 3 years, nothing's happened. There's been no nothing. Now they were going to have an exercise together. However, last Friday, 1st of August, the US Embassy sent South Africa's Department of International Relations and Cooperation a diplomatic note informing them that the US Department of Defense, the DoD, has cancelled the exercise. It said that this was because South Africa's Ministry of Defense and military veterans presented requirements inconsistent with agreements between our governments that the DoD could not support. The South African National Defence Force has not responded to a request for comment on this situation. One of the agreements between the two countries is the 1999 Status of Forces Agreement, which governs military exercises. It states the US military personnel taking part in exercises in South Africa shall be allowed to carry arms on duty if authorized to do so by their orders. So it's not something weird. It is allowed and it's expected. The Protection Web editor Ricardo Teixeira told the Daily Maverick that he heard that the SANDF refused to permit the US security detail to leave the transport aircraft to protect it. He noted that similar issues concerning the Status of Forces Agreement arose twice last year, causing the US to cancel plans to send aircraft to participate in the African Aerospace and Defense Expo in Pretoria. And that's where now suddenly, last year, China had pride of place at that expo, in the absence of America. They also cancelled plans to dock a US Navy ship in Cape Town, as the US had done several times before. All these things show you a breakdown of trust and relationship. In all 3 cases, it appeared the SANDF had rescinded the kinds of permissions it had granted to the US before, which were authorized under the agreement. So we've shot ourselves in the foot, he said, adding that he believed that after these 3 cancelled events, the US is frustrated. Duh. And this is probably going to be the end of any sort of military exercise or relation between the SANDF and the DoD for the foreseeable future. Shocking, right? So this is when politicians are trying to play to get to both parties and have the best of both worlds. So maybe to keep Russia and China appeased, we change agreement with the US and not allow them to have armed guards. I mean, we don't even have a proper military. We can't look after your aircraft. Really? So now you can't look after your aircraft and you can't this and you can't that and we change the rules. And now you've got an upset agreement with the United States. So China and Russia might be happy about that. But now, because of the tariffs, the 30% tariffs that have kicked in, and the chaos going on in the relationship between the US and South Africa, and the fact that we still haven't even bothered to replace the ambassador in America, which we should have done ages ago, or bothered to go back and try and speak to Donald Duck and find out if we can find a way forward. We haven't done any of that but complain. We did. And now we're in the situation we are. And now, to try and appease America, a Russian military ship stopped at Cape Town harbor, and South Africa refused that any of their crew, they've got an entire shipment of crew that is on training, were allowed to get off. They're usually allowed to get off and walk around and, purchase things and do things, get some shore leave. They forbade them to leave the ship. So to try and appease America, they're showing we don't really want Russian troops access to South African ground, but at the same time, now you're upsetting Russia, who is supposedly our bestie, along with China and Iran and Hamas and Hezbollah, but now you're stopping their troops from getting off and spending some shore leave. You see how twisted and confused and all over the place my government is. How does any of that even begin to make sense to you? So there's chaos in government now. Different parties screaming at different parties, saying, how can you upset the Russians? They're our best friends. Supposedly, yes. What's going on? And, what's up with the whole situation with America? And interesting times in South Africa, with leadership running around without heads or brains or thoughts, and the common man on the street is the one who's receiving the punishment and the suffering. But God. Then Canada unveils the tallest Lord Rama statue unveiled. The 51-foot tall statue of Lord Ram has been unveiled at the Hindu Heritage Centre in Mississauga, Ontario, making it the tallest Lord Ram statue in North America. The inauguration featured flower petals and community support inspired by Ram Temple in Ayodhya. Built over 4 years from fiberglass and steel, because you've got to make sure your false gods have a little bit of strength. It is designed to withstand harsh Canadian winters and winds up to 200 kilometers an hour. Heads up, people, the actual, only, real God is going to make those winds much more than 200 kilometers an hour. Akhaira Surinder Sharma Shastri called it a spiritual gift to the community, and the site is easily accessible from downtown Toronto and expected to attract visitors from across North America as people flock to a false god statue to pay it homage and honor and take pictures and selfies and think how awesome it is. While the only one true God looks down in anger and judgment that's coming. Ridiculous, right? You can't really have meetings in churches without getting locked up. If you talk against things they don't agree with, and they want to persecute the true faith, and then they want to erect a 51-foot statue of a false god. Truly, truly living at the end of the time of mankind. Then on a funny note, we'll end on a funny note, and after the funny note, just some serious reflection on Israel. But on the funny note, Iranian expert, unknown drip under pressure, remember, expert, accuses the United States and Israel of cloud theft as water crisis nears breaking point. It can't be judgment. It can't be anything else. Can't even be the climate crisis and all those things. No, it's the United States and Israel stealing their clouds. And truly, in his defense, if you fly over that part of the world, you'll see the little traffic officials in the air redirecting the clouds to other countries and away from Iran, because we know that's a thing. Water resources expert Moshe Arbabian alleges foreign adversaries are manipulating weather as the nation grapples with the worst water crisis in decades. Now, could they be using HARP and things like that to mess with their weather? Absolutely. I'm not saying that's not a possibility. An Iranian water resources expert accused Israel and the US of orchestrating a decades-long effort to divert rain clouds away from Iran, contributing to the country's deepening water crisis. The Middle East Media Research Institute reported that this was the case. Arbabian alleged that they are openly hostile to Iran and have gradually been working to manipulate regional weather patterns over 40 years. I say this with confidence, he declared. You can see in satellite images how the clouds shift from their course. I don't care how many people say this is normal. I say it is not. He's an expert. We should listen to him. He specifically pointed to the differences in water levels between Lake Van in Turkey, which he claims is full, and Iran's Lake Urmia, once the largest saltwater lake in the Middle East, which is nearly dried up. I wonder if he's going to complain about the Euphrates River drying up next, which is also quite biblical. So, interesting. Do I think Iran's under attack from Western players indirectly and without knowledge of anybody outright? Yeah, absolutely, I think so. There's a lot that we don't know, and there's a lot that's going on behind the scenes, but yeah, I thought that was funny. Cloud theft, you know. Then on a serious note, let's talk Israel for a second. So Israel released a couple of articles now saying no more red heifers left. Whoops, we're out of red heifers. The Temple Institute said, that's it now. That for me is the perfect way to diffuse the tension in the Middle East. They're gone. Don't worry. No more red heifers. No sacrifice. Nothing. Chill. Nothing's happening. Nothing to see here. After they did a practice run with an actual red heifer, where nowhere in the Bible did they have to do a practice run before doing the actual sacrifice. They just followed the rules and did the sacrifice. And you can do a practice run like you do for a graduation or a test or anything else without actually completing the process. So you don't have to have the actual red heifer there. You can have a person standing or a dog or a cat or anything. You can go through all the ritual and everyone whose part gets played, who says what. This is when we kill it, boom, and then we take this bowl, which is currently empty, which will be full of blood. You see, that is a practice run. To actually do the ritual, I say, was the actual ritual. And where are all those ashes? Practice collected the ashes, and practice put the ashes away in a practice place where they can practice be used on practice rebuilding the third temple. That's my opinion. It really makes the most sense. It calms everyone down, brings the whole temperature down on the whole Temple Mount situation until the Antichrist can resolve it and give them permission to build. And then the Temple Institute goes and admits something chilling. They are now moving their work, and they've admitted this, into secrecy because they've already sacrificed the red heifer. They've openly stated that they keep a tight lid on efforts and generally do not advertise our successes, like we had a success by practice killing the red heifer and burning it. We're not going to advertise that. We're actually going to say we're out of red heifers. This shift means that the next we hear may not be about the search, but about the sacrifice, done quietly without public announcement. I think they've done it, and I think they're keeping quiet about it because it would be the clever thing to do to bring the temperature down in the Middle East at a time such as this. It aligns with prophetic expectation that the world will suddenly wake up to this reality that the pieces are all in place. And Jesus warned that the last days would come on the world like a snare. Luke 21:34-36. Suddenly, like a snare, people will wake up one morning and go, oh my word, those crazy Jesus people were right. What the heck? They're building a what in Jerusalem? Huh? That's my opinion. I think they've done it. I think that's why they're saying they're keeping it all quiet. They're not advertising their successes. What successes? What? What current success have you got? We know about the implements. We know about the priests. We know you've got the high priest. We know you've got the rituals in place. We know you've got the singers. You've got the ritual mikvah baths. We know you've got everything prepared. You've got the oil, everything. Those are not successes. Those are done, dusted, ticked, annotated, put one side. But now you're keeping quiet about your successes. The only success you could possibly have had is your latest red heifer sacrifice, which means nothing for you because Jesus is what you need. But yes, that's what I think the situation is in Israel. It's an intelligent decision to move in this direction publicly, but be ready in quiet. God bless. Keep looking up. Keep spreading the word of God. Keep sharing Jesus with everyone around you and keeping a light in the darkness. And always, no matter what faces you, be unstoppable. God bless. Shalom.